Hello, lovely Instagram people. I'm here live for my beginners inspired interview with Deborah J. Kelly, and I'm just waiting for her to arrive and join us and come and tell us all her awesome stories. There's Deb. Okay, so Deborah, you have to... Oh, what have I done? Request to join. There she is. She's requested. Come on. Yay, here she is. Any moment now. Here she is. Hey.
How are you?
And my background matches your top. I mean, my top matches your background, isn't that?
We're very colour coordinated. This was obviously very clearly planned.
Obviously, because we're such good planners.
Yeah.
They're organised.
Shh, don't tell people.
How are you, Deb?
Good, yeah, great.
You always call yourself Deborah J, and I always call you Deb. What do you call yourself?
It doesn't really matter, whichever. I kind of use Deborah J for business, but Deborah, I'm not like, unobtainable by calling me Deborah J or Debs or whatever. Anything but Debbie, actually. I'm Debbie at home, like in Ireland, in where my hometown is, but I don't really like Debbie because I kind of feel like I'm little pigtails and dungarees.
Little Debbie.
Yeah.
Bit like pat on the head, Debbie. Yeah.
Kinda, yeah.
I totally get that. So my name, I think you do know, my full name is Leanne, and I kind of ditched it about a year and a half ago, and I've got a lot of baggage with that name, actually. Like when I was little, I just dreamt of being called something like short, like Lee, and my mum would always go, her name is Leanne, and wouldn't let anyone call me that.
Oh, really? No way.
So when I ditched it and started calling myself Lee, now when people call me Leanne, I'm like, who is that person? Don't call me that name.
Yeah, I know, it can sound a little bit strange, especially when it's a kiddie thing. I'm going to do a nice technical thing here because my phone just rang when you were talking in typical fashion, and now I can't hear you properly. So nice good old glitch.
Oh, are you going to leave and come back?
I think that might be an idea, yeah, because I can kind of hear you, but it's down really low. What do you reckon?
For Deb to come back again. Hello, Claire. And here she is already. Okay, let's get going. I can't wait to have this chat.
Oh my God. That's so much better. Yeah. It's so difficult. Like my phone wouldn't ring for ages, and then as soon as I go on this, it rings and knocks off. Sorry about that.
Maybe it's someone watching this live, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're famous!" Go, like when you're on the radio and your mum phones, I can hear you on the radio.
I don't know. I'm a while off that yet, I think, somehow.
Okay, Deb, so give us the one-liner. What is your business all about?
So my business is Soul Navigation. What I do basically is I help women to know what they want in life. So when they're searching for clarity, whether they're looking for deeper meaning or life purpose, I help them to know what they want. So I use my Soul Navigation system, which basically uses astrology, loads of practical tools, and a lot of intuitive guidance to be able to show them how to reconnect with their inner wisdom and navigate life. That's basically it, because when we're disconnected from our inner wisdom, we're not able to make decisions clearly. And then when we know how to navigate life and interpret our world around us, you can make any decision you want whenever you want.
I love it. So it's all about like reconnecting with yourself and your inner world. And what does that bring you when you do that? Like, what sort of, what is like the ultimate outcome for the people that you work with? What do you want to see them go on to do?
That essentially that they know themselves. I think a lot of people don't realize that they need to know themselves because, if you're the type of person, if you're anything like me and you're one of these multi-potentialite people and you're great and you're trying every single subject under the sun, if you're doing loads of courses and books and you're constantly trying to fix yourself, if there's a feeling that you want to fix yourself in some way, or you're going to yoga because you don't feel good, or you're doing therapy because you don't feel good, or you're doing more of these online courses because you're trying to make yourself something, a lot of the cause of people's misery, frustration, lack of fulfillment, depression, anxiety, the whole lot of it, a lot of it is caused by total disconnection to the self, because they don't know what they want. They don't know, they actually do know what they want, but they don't realize it because it's shrouded in a fog of trying to live up to the world and what the world wants them to be. So it could be like, their parents expect them to be a particular way, or it could be quite often they're actually reliving what their parents have been doing. So they're kind of like nearly reliving the same patterns that their parents or grandparents had, and they're kind of doing the same things in life. And they're trying to change it, and they're doing all this self-help. But self-help is addictive. It's an addictive tool, and it has its merits and its place, and it gets you to a certain place. And it's great for helping people to wake up to themselves. But I personally feel there's a glass ceiling, Lee, in the self-help world. And this is what people are going around in this track. If you're spending so much money on all these courses and you still feel the same, then you have to eventually stop and ask yourself, why is nothing changing? And the reason that things aren't changing is because there's nothing broken to be fixed. You can't fix what's not broken. And so when people get exhausted and they end up at the point where they're like, am I just stuck on default factory settings in my life, and I'm not able to deserve happiness or the job or career I want or the relationship I want or whatever it is, that's normally when they would come to me, because they've exhausted all the external avenues they can, and then they're ready to face themselves. And so my system uses astrology to be able to show them who they are and who they're not. So when we look at an astrological map, we've done this together. So when we look at the astrological map, you can see who you are and who you're not, which is really interesting. And I do like a 2-hour session that's jam-packed, and you should see people's face. They're literally like, oh, so I'm really good at starting and I'm not so good at finishing, and that's just me. It's not just because I'm a crap human. And I'm like, yeah, that's because it's you, because that's because it's your superpower. And somebody else's superpower is terrible at starting things but really good at finishing them. And so this is what I'd love to see in the world. I'd love to see people coming together and collaborating and being like, I'm really good at starting, you're really crap at starting. You're good at finishing, I'm crap at finishing. Let's come together and make something amazing. Like, how beautiful is that?
And so it is so beautiful, but so opposite to what we are trained to be from very young and very little. Like, there's a particular school system that you have to fit into, and you have to be able to either fit the box or you don't, right? And there's a particular way of doing things. The media tells us particular ways of, this is right, this is wrong, that looks good, that doesn't look good. So I think there's actually a big energy at the moment, a feeling that we're all breaking out of this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's quite it's happening across the board. It's happening in parenting, I'm seeing, it's happening in the school system to a certain extent, and it's definitely happening in the online business world, where we've all been following like a particular, like, this is the way things are done, but actually it's about coming back to yourself and figuring out what works for you to be able to take your business forward in the right way. Well, in a way that's not the right way, in the right way for you again. Yes, I love that. And I love, so let's go back a bit to how we met. So we met in a Facebook group where you were talking about, like, you have been working on this for ages, like this business that you just didn't quite know what it was and how to bring it to life. And you've been working on all the bits and pieces, and you finally know what you want to do, but now you didn't quite know how to bring it to life. And I just saw your post, and for some reason it spoke to me, and I was like, I really want to work with you. And the way it all came together has just been an awesome journey for both of us, right?
Yeah, it's been epic, the whole thing. Like, for me, I've spent my life searching for my life purpose. I think I was saying to you before, like, crying snotty tear fests into a pillow, like trying to figure it all out, and it was really, really painful. And when I finally figured it out, I was like, okay, now what do I do? Do you know, like, and I had been looking online, and I had been looking at all the trends on social media and how you're supposed to do this and that. And the first thing I learned was, like, stop trying to do everything, number one. The second thing I learned was most of it isn't for you. It's just you need to find the parts that are for you. And this is where, when I was working with you, what I really loved, Lee, you really, really met me where I'm at. And that was, you know, there's loads of people online who are, I'm going to say it, people who are like, take this 6-figure course to make a 6-figure course to train somebody else how to do 6-figure course, and none of them have made 6 figures. And you're like, you're doing your videos from the bedroom, and clearly you haven't made 6 figures. And that's no disrespect, but there's a lot of copy and paste. So when it came to, I was in a situation where starting out, I didn't have money to do this. Do you know what I mean? Like, so your start out business, it's really, really difficult to get up off the ground. And so for me to invest money into anything was scary, because I could see the smoke and mirrors in the social media online world, and I just didn't know who to trust. I was like, okay, but if I go for this coach, have they really done it? You know, have they actually really done what they've said that they're going to teach you to do, or is it just another copy and paste format? And I needed to feel authenticity. It's one of my qualities and values, and I needed to have that in return. And I remember watching you on your journey, because we were in the same group, and we had, you know, I could see you in the background and kind of tipping along here and there. And then I was like, oh my God. And we just connected. And I just love that you listened to me. You knew my pain points so well. So much so that I was like, yes, I totally get that. And then all I wanted was, I needed to have structure and a system to put into place to take the overwhelm out. And that's what you did with me. And I really, like, I love our relationship has bloomed and blossomed, and working together has been amazing. The whole process has been fab.
And so much fun, because as much as I've worked on you on, like, my business process and my strategy that I've helped you, or your strategy that I've helped you craft and put in place, I've learned so much from you, because I'm kind of like always on the fence about all this woo stuff, and especially the astrology part. So part of it was really fun in working with you to do a session with you and to really understand what that's about, so that I can help you bring, you know, like what you do to life for your clients. But it actually helped me so much to open myself up to that process as well, and to go like, okay, let's just be completely, suspend the judgment and be open to this idea of astrology and all the other little tools that you use. And it's been super helpful, actually, for you to look at my birth chart, which like 6 months ago I would have gone like, don't even talk about that stuff. But now to like look at that and go, oh, but you were supposed to have this type of childhood, and you are this type of person. Like it's okay to just be who you are, because it was always going to be that way. And like to shed light on the reasons why, like, I have massive issues trusting myself. I trust everybody else, but not me. And then for you to just show me like, oh, but you knew that about me just by looking at all these things. It's been really, really cool. So I love that we met each other in a place where, like, we both took a chance on each other, really. And those first messages with each other were so funny, like one voice note after the next, because we're both getting so excited, like, oh my God, this is going to be so cool. And now to go through the process and come to the place where we are now, where you just are like growing your wings and starting to fly in your business. And what you've done for me and like helping to bring the more woo stuff out of me.
You know, it's funny as well, because I love this word woo, because I really, you know, but everybody uses it, and even I use it, and it's, do you know what it is? It's the word woo, and woo woo is the bridge that goes between the world of spirituality and the non-spirituality world. And I'm hearing it so much, and it's really interesting because it has its negative connotations, but to be honest with you, it's a word that's needed, because I think people who aren't comfortable with the more esoteric side of things, it gives them like a, oh, like I'm cool with this. What is it about? Like, but I love it because it's like a little bridge and introduction in.
Yes.
But I can see it so much more in business everywhere. And what I love about my own journey, even with you, has been like I've been unfolding myself continuously. Look, I'll be unfolding myself until I take my last breath. That's just kind of how it is. But I would have always put myself to be down like, oh, I'm a spiritual person. I am not, like, don't give me feathers and fluff. Like, I'm not, when you talk about spirituality, I'm not a feathers and fluff person. I am more like, how can we practically understand this and make it work for you? So I see what I do to be more kind of shadow work than, you know, the kind of fluffy unicorns and rainbows and floaty dresses side of thing. No disrespect to anybody who's into that. It's just not me. And I thought it was me for ages because I thought, well, you're either spiritual or you're not. So if you're spiritual, you must do all those floaty things. And it didn't fit me. And I was like, no, I'm much more into, like I love journaling and tapping, you know, EFT tapping and stuff like that. I think you've used this as well, because it's incredible what you can get in at. And I find for people who have, like, you know, people know therapy, you know, oh yeah, you go to a hypnotherapist or a psychotherapist or a counselor and you do all this kind of thing. For somebody like me whose brain is incredibly active, I'm very analytical, I'm very, very up in my head. I'm very self-critical, very self-analytical also. But for somebody like me, I find therapy very difficult because I can't turn off. And also, I want to be doing what they're doing. So I'm learning from them. They're doing a session on me and I'm learning from them, like, you know, so I don't even turn off there.
So you're switching on that part of your brain while you should be.
Yeah, I'm being the therapist and the client at the same time, because that's actually how I work with myself. But what I've actually found, this is one of the biggest keys to what I do. It's one of the biggest keys to my work. When you learn to show up for yourself, and what that means without having it as being another buzz way of speaking, when we learn how to build an energetic trust and rapport with ourselves, so we know when, you know, our partner or kids are like hungry or upset or they haven't slept well, but how like we don't know our own emotions so well. But when we start to show up for ourselves and start to be curious about ourselves, and it's just about curiosity. Why do I feel this way? How do I feel today? I don't have words on that. That's okay. And it's just showing up constantly, and it's incredible what you can get in at. Like years of therapy, I've been able to get in at stuff so quickly with the system that I use myself.
Yes, and something you said now was really interesting because in the beginning of when you were talking, you were saying you couldn't identify with the kind of spiritual people because you didn't want to be all feathers and floaty dresses, but actually in finding your way into this, it's all been about finding your own way into it. It is for everybody. It's like a scale, right? There's like maybe completely spiritual to completely scientific, and you can fit in anywhere along that scale that you want to. You don't have to be one or the other. And there are different layers and levels to it, and that's okay. So Tanya said, I love the woo, but I'm in the world of non-woo, so I see myself as a bridge for those people who poo in the woo. Which is hilarious, Tanya. I like that a lot. Okay, so tell us about what you love about sort of your industry, about being in the space that you're in.
To be honest, I feel as though the work that I'm doing, I feel that I don't feel like it's the normal mainstream. I feel like you've got therapy and I feel like you've got the very spiritual stuff. And I feel that behind that is the more like that bridge gap, that shadow work and that bridge between the two of them. That's where my niche is. And I feel there's actually not as many of us doing that work that I've come across that speak the same language that I do. And I notice when I'm watching other people and watching what they're doing, there's a particular way certain people speak, and you know that they've been through the stuff and you can hear it straight from them, that they've actually been doing this work on themselves and that they're really connected in with their work. And what I love is I feel that the work that I'm doing and that these people are doing, it's a lot about deprogramming us. It's a lot about, we're very programmed by the system that we're born into, and we need to be able to see that in order to come out of that. And that's a scary process. And so that's kind of the work that I'm doing. It's kind of like really facing us around to facing us around, instead of being that way in our life, that we face around and we're coming home to ourselves. And so the work that I do, I love it because I feel like there's a lot of glass ceilings ready to be bust. There's a lot of pop spirituality that needs to be bust, and I don't mean it in a bad way. It has its purpose, but it's time now to get the heck on with it and to start living the lives that we want to. We deserve it, and we're able to do it. I thought I was the most broken, unfixable, stuck on factory default settings for my life, and I've been able to get out of that. And if I can do it, anybody can do it. So for me, I just want more people to be able to see that, and that's what I love about my industry, because it's ready, it's going to change. There's a big change coming with it.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing from you though is that you can't really find a way to fit into an industry. You're actually kind of between a lot of things. And I think maybe it comes, a lot of what you're saying about thinking you were broken and then you have to fix yourself actually comes back to that thing that I bang about a lot, that you've been talking about a lot, we've been discussing, of like going into business with the purpose of income first, as opposed to going into business impact first.
Yeah.
And income will flow from that. And a lot of people, without going down that road, because we both get our answer, without going down that road, a lot of what happens in the online space that perhaps is driving you feeling broken and like you need to be fixed and you need to do the next person's course and the next person's program with all this pop spirituality and that sort of thing, is because it's being driven by the income first kind of model. There's a lot of people teaching you how to go online, put your skills online and be all about the income. You can build a 6-figure business or whatever. You can get X number of clients. And rather than the impact first, make a difference to people's lives and the money will flow from that. And it's leaving a lot of people feeling that brokenness you're talking about, that like, there's something wrong with me, I need to find the magic pill, when in reality the answer's inside you.
And that's part of that. That's part of so much of the work that I do, because that's part of looking this way. Like when we're actively looking this way, it's like, where do I get the money? And like, that's so natural. We need to have our needs met. Absolutely. It doesn't mean that you don't need to look for income. It just means that you need to figure out why it is you need to look for income, first of all. And also, what can you get behind? Because for me, I could have gone, I have a load of experience. I could have gone into so many different jobs. But I was done with that. And like, this is, the women that I work with are also in this situation. They've done that. They've done all the different jobs. They're multi-potentialite people. They're like, they do several jobs in one company, and they've gone from job to job trying to figure out the thing that's going to make them happy, and they can't find it. And the reason they can't find it is that disconnection of self, and because they're looking for it outside. But when you get to know yourself, so that whole like turning yourself around to really look at yourself and get to know yourself, that's when you stop being so focused on the money and you start being like, oh, this is what I care about. Like, what do you care about? And I often say to my clients, I often say to them, like, if you forget money and everything, go back to when you were 8 years old and you played let's pretend and make believe and whatever. I'm playing cowboys and Indians, and what am I going to play next? I'm going to play shop. I'm going to play DJ. I'm going to play whatever. What did you play when you were 8? And if there was nothing serious attached to it, what would you play now? Would you play shop? Would you play let's start a business? Would you play I'm going to be a vet? Would you play I'm going to sit in an office and put my glasses on and like sort through paper and like be an admin person? What would you play? What would you feel happy playing? And then from there, you'll start to figure out what it is you want to do,
Oh my God, I love that so much. So much. I think it is like the number one thing I've asked. Like, I don't work these days with a lot of people who haven't started a business yet. But when I wasn't doing this for a business, I worked with a lot of people helping them get started. And that was the thing. That was the number one question. Like, if you won the lottery today and you never had to work again, what would you spend your life doing? And that's, I mean, there's so much power in that answer. That's how I've seen a lot of people start businesses. And I mean, to be honest, that's probably why I get so frustrated and so triggered by all the stuff online, because that's how I started this. Was, okay, I've built the big business. I've had the 7-figure business. I've had the 17 staff and 2,000 clients. Like, right now, if I could do anything and the money wasn't an issue, what would I spend doing? And it's this.
Yeah.
So when you come into a space with that point of view, and you see people coming at you from the other side, it's hard for me to deal with. Anyway, let's not go on that road. Okay, Deb, I want to hear about, let's get on to like your public persona, your business kind of side. So this is an exercise that I go through with my clients, but I thought I'd bring it into the interview because it'll be fun. Tell us about your embarrassing quirks. So I love to pull out like what are the things you feel like you need to hide from your audience? Because
oh my God.
People will love about you.
Do you know what? I spoke about this the other day to somebody, and I was saying how I don't really feel like I get massively embarrassed about things, but there's a few things in my life that I definitely am like, oh yeah, that wasn't cool. One of them, believe it or not, was a few years ago I was made redundant, and I hadn't yet got my redundancy money, and I was desperate to escape the 9-to-5 cage, and I was like, okay, I am going to start my own business, and I don't know what it is, and I didn't know at that stage anything. I was literally clambering for like, what could I make out of like the bones here on the ground? And I went to a JT Fox speaker event here in Dublin.
Wow.
And like, there were so many red flags, it's ridiculous. If anybody knows JT Fox or has watched JT Fox, this is my personal experience. Oh my God, I was like, yeah, like he was really, really pumped up. And this guy came in before, and he was like, now this guy is really mean and he's a very serious guy and all the rest of it. And I was like, okay, what are we expecting? This guy came in, he was not a pleasant dude. He was not a very pleasant dude. But that was his persona, and they had made him out to be like an OBS kind of person. Anyway, red flags all over the place, not soul aligned at all. By the end of the seminar, I was running to the back of the room to sign up for a couple of grand. I mean, like in the higher end of the couple of grand. Course to be a speaker, and I was like, yeah, like jumping over people. Like, he had me so riled up. And I rang my mum, because I was like, okay, well, I don't have the funds at the moment, but I'll have it in a couple of weeks. Like, standing in this room, like ready to, it was 8 grand, Lee. It was 8 grand. And my mum, I remember standing in a hotel, and my mum was like, please don't do this. Like, my mum's a savvy businesswoman. She was like, please don't do this. And I was like, no, I'm pumped up. I can feel it. I was so not connected to my inner wisdom at the time at all. Totally bypassed. And I really nearly spent I didn't, thankfully, my mum, I listened to her voice of wisdom. Like, she's a very, very wise woman. And I was like, okay. And she felt so bad talking me out of it. I was like pumped. I just wanted it. This was the answer to me figuring out my career. And I felt so deflated. But like, after I left, and when I came down from it, when I actually came down off that adrenaline high, I was so ashamed, Lee. I was so embarrassed. I nearly spent like all of money I didn't have on that course. That's probably one of the most embarrassing things I ever did. For me, like, you know, not in front of loads of people, but like, oh my God, so embarrassing.
That just pushes so many buttons for me.
Yup.
Yeah, the inauthentic marketing, the riling you up, getting the adrenaline going, the making you sign up on the spot, get the sample while
we were brought into a room. We were literally brought into a room and selected. We like signed up, but we didn't know if we were going to be allowed to do the course. And then we were tiered we were actually tiered off and separated again. It was like, take the herd, separate them, take the herd, separate them, take the herd, separate them, and make them jump through as many hoops as possible. So by the end of it, you're so committed that you're embarrassed if you don't commit. And it's such a nasty way of doing, like, if it works for, I'm sure it's worked for some people and they've gotten the value out of it. That's great. I didn't have $8,000 to spend, and I was spending $8,000 I didn't have. And it could have it could have really caused me a lot of problems, you know?
Yeah, I don't know of anyone who's made that sort of thing work. So, like, I would say you have to be the absolute unicorn if it did work for you. You know, $8,000 worth of value worked for you, kind of thing. And as you know, I speak to people every day who've done that, spent the $5,000, the $8,000, the $10,000, whatever it was, and have had to go back to work and like spend another 2 years. Like, let's put them back a few years. You know?
Yeah, God, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot wrong with that. Okay, what are you excited about right now in your business or in life?
In life and in my business. In my life, I'm excited that I am finally designing my own life. When I was in my darkest times, a lot of what I wanted, my way out was by looking at the patterns in nature. That's what gives me all my answers. It's what inspires me to this day. Being in flow with the rhythms of nature as much as possible is what I like to do. And it allows me to honor my own inner wisdom and to really feel into it. It's not a luxury we always get to have because life can become very busy and take over. And I'm not perfect. I have a lot of time where I feel like everything is chaotic and I'm trying to figure my way. I really want people to know that when you're on this journey, it's not perfect. It is imperfect, and it's designed, like, your life is always going to be imperfect. So what I'm excited about is I have a massive dangling bunch of gold shiny keys, and I now know what it is that I'm doing in my life, and I now know how to unlock so many doors for people. And all I want to do is scream it from the rooftops and be like, oh my God, like, un-F your life. You know, just, I can't wait till I get to the stage where I know that I'm noticeably making a difference in the world, in the grander scheme of it. Because I feel that the more people who know each other or know themselves, the world will just be a happier place, and the generations ahead will be happier. Do you know, we have kids coming in from new generations. If we get to know ourselves, the more people who get to know themselves, the happier the world will be, the happier our kids will be. You know, long after we're gone, after you and me are dead, Lee, nobody's going to remember us. Nobody's going to know what we looked like, regardless if we became superstars. It doesn't matter, you know, but what we do now and how we affect the ripples of the energy going forward is how we affect the world. So long after we're gone, it's the only thing we can leave behind. And I'm excited that now I know the ripple I want to leave. And I'm really excited to see what that brings.
That is so beautiful. I love it. Can I just go back to something you said though? So I love the idea of like the connectedness of where we are now with the future. And I know you talk about the past a lot as well, you know, like the wisdom that came before us also have to give. And I do believe we're at this like pivotal point in time where we've been very much herded into a system, and people are starting to kind of think for themselves a little bit more. But you said something about watching or being in touch with the rhythms in nature, which I really loved. Like what rhythms and how does that kind of play out in your life and your work?
Every time I feel like I lose my sense of balance, every time I feel fear, all fear is telling you that you're facing the wrong way. All frustration is telling you that you're facing the wrong way. Joy and love is telling you that you're facing the right way. So when I feel out of balance and I get all up in my head, quite often I'll just go for a walk and I literally look at nature, and I forget a lot of stuff. You know, I have to remember a lot of stuff, and nature is what helps me to remember. So like, you know, I did a video in my group not long ago, and it was about I was looking at the birds and I was thinking, you know, birds don't sit there watching commercials going, oh, what's the best bird seed I should be eating? Or I wonder what colour feathers I should be wearing. And why does that robin look like a different colour to me? That's a little bit strange. And how do I get out of this nest? I don't know how to fly. Like, birds don't read how-to manuals on how to get out of the nest. They just learn and they do it. And it's that there's a beauty in instinctual wisdom which has been passed on to us. And if tomorrow morning, I know this sounds very doomsday, but it's not doomsday. It's part of the work that I do. If everything was taken away from you tomorrow morning, how would you survive? Because if you don't know that information and we just constantly rely on books and courses and other people to tell us how to do that, then that information will always be external to us. We need to come back into our center and come back home to ourselves. And birds, when they're sitting in a nest, it's instinctual for them to know. We should know instinctually what is the right food and wrong food for us, not for everybody. You know, not everybody is good with tomatoes. Not everybody, you know, if there's one thing I see with astrology, Lee, is, oh my God, we're so completely, totally, uniquely different, every single one of us. And yet this world likes to pretend that we're trying to be all different, but it's not. It's labeling people into different ways of all being the same. And it's where we need to come back from that. We need to look at what are the patterns in nature. If you have a repetitive negative pattern in your life, if you keep attracting the same person in a relationship that's triggering you, if you keep ending up in somebody's company and they're triggering you with certain things all the time, that's not just coincidence. That's your entire world and universe around you trying to communicate. It's trying to say, hey, this thing that's triggering you, how about you go inside and figure out what that's about? Because it's never about the other person. And these are all signposts which are leading us home. Nature, when we look at it, is just leading us home. Repetitive patterns, challenges, they're just leading us home. And that's how I view the patterns, even down to like reflexology and acupressure. And we've maps on our feet that work with our entire body system. We've maps in our ears, in our eyes, in our tongue. You know, if you look at your tongue or your eyes, you can see little markings on them that will actually tell you, you know, whether you're nutrient deficient or not. You know, my nails at the moment, I have a load of ridges in them. It's because I'm lacking nutrients. But our bodies are communicating with us all the time, you know?
Yeah. So what's interesting about that is that, so you were saying that like the system taught us to disconnect from ourselves. And at the same time, the system or life, the way we've been living, has taught us that it's all separate, right? So everything you talk about now, like reflexology or what's it called? Iridology, where they look at your eyes. All of these modalities are actually all connected and work together. If you use them all together, they're all telling you the same thing. It's just
amazing
ways. But yet we're taught to believe like it has to be one or the other. You either go to the doctor or you go to the homeopath and naturopath and complete it that way. And you either believe that massage is going to work for you, or you believe that acupuncture is. You believe the physio or the chiropractor. Like actually, they all come together and work together, and they're layered so beautifully on top of each other. So why do you think it is that we try to separate ourselves from each other and go like, oh no, I am a chiropractor person and I will not go to a physio or whatever, you know, that's just a silly example. But what is it that makes us separate ourselves and believe that you are either one or the other?
Because we're separated from ourselves, because we're fragmented. You know, we fragment ourselves every day. When you experience something traumatic, a part of you fragments into the stronger and weaker poles, and that's how you cope with things every single day, you know. So the reason, because our society is fractured, you know, I would love to know, those who are listening and watching this video, how many of you are living in your hometown still that you grew up in? And how many of you know your neighbours? And how many neighbours do you know? And how often do you see each other? Because quite often we grow up and we move away from our hometowns because we go to college or we go to different schools or we go get jobs. And so that essence of community that once was, where you had the healers and the midwives and the herbalists and the doctors and whoever else. Everybody lived in the same community and knew each other, and it was a lot more bound together, you know, and the wisdom of the land was passed on. So like, you know, dandelion leaves are used for your kidneys, dandelion roots are used for your liver. Kidneys is fear, liver is anger. Like, there's so much more to just a weed growing up through a crack on the ground, but we've lost that because we don't live with the people growing up hearing that. You know, we don't live with our grannies and granddads who talk about the land anymore because we don't work with the land anymore. So it's the fragmenting and the disconnection from our communities and families. I feel that that's the reason it is the way it is.
And then I suppose in trying to keep yourself, or like believe in your separateness and your, you know, we're all trying to build our own little lives separate to everybody else. You end up disconnecting from like all the wisdom that's around you, and in trying to make yourself right, I find this is like my big learning over the last while, in trying to make yourself right and your way right, and to affirm that what you're doing is okay. We have to make someone else's way wrong.
Mm.
Instead of this idea, like I keep saying to my kids, like, let's bring back the idea that we can agree to disagree. That it's okay for like him to be right and you to be right at the same time. That's okay. We don't have to make him wrong in order for you to be right.
Yeah.
And it's the same with everything that you're talking about and sharing him. It's all right at the same time.
And it's actually, I had a client last week who, when we were chatting, we were saying how, you know, this particular person was quite triggered by her partner with certain things. And what I was actually explaining to her was that your partner, him triggering you, is actually offering you an opportunity of growth. So while we look at somebody who is just irritating the head office and we're like, get out of my space and you said this horrible thing to me and now I feel really upset and all the rest of it, a lot of that is to do with our identity. We're afraid of losing our identity. And when you realize that that can't be taken away from you, you don't have to fight for it as much anymore, first of all. But second of all, when you really realize how to read and interpret your environment and can see how somebody triggering you or annoying you, they're on their own path, you're on your own path. You're actually as much helping them to wake up as they are helping you to wake up. And every time you get triggered by somebody, it offers you a moment to go, ooh, that's interesting. Why did that happen? It doesn't make it easier. It doesn't mean that you have to be superwoman and not like cry over it and not be upset or hurt over it, because you're human. But it means that it's given you an opportunity to take time out, go to the bathroom for 5 minutes and go, why is that really bugging me? What does it remind me of? Oh, that reminds me of my mum or dad or my cousin or brother, or, do you know, and it's very interesting that quite often the reason somebody's triggering you has nothing to do with that person and has everything to do with it reminding you of something else at another point in time. And yet we take it out on other people, and we don't see, if we could see how much that they're offering us moments to wake up to ourselves more, we'd have so much more compassion, and we wouldn't get so protective over being right either, you know.
That's a nice way to put it. Someone once put it to me as when someone does something for some people it could be like a little poke on the arm, but when it happens to you it feels like they're you on a bruise, and that's how you, there's an old wound there that you need to like, why is this triggering so much? I always felt like that was a good way to think of it, like to what degree did this just hurt me? Did you punch a bruise, or is it like, did you just poke me, kind of thing, you know, poke on the arm?
And it's like, scars are sensitive, like, and you know, so yeah.
So Tanya said this exact thing happened to me recently, and it was so liberating to realize. Yeah, it really is. Like when you realize, like, oh, hold on, what's going on there? Like I saw something yesterday, and immediately I was, oh, how can she be doing the same thing to me? And then when you kind of unpack it, step back and like, why do I feel this way? When have I felt this way before? Do I need this emotion, or can I turn it around and actually feel empathy and feel happy for her? And, you know, like,
and it's not easy to do. Like, and I'm somebody who's an intuitive coach and I help other people. I love to say this to people, and I really want more and more people to understand this, that even I get hurt. Like, I have moments where I'm like, damn, that hurt, or like get really angry or feel really defensive and put out. But what's interesting is that's never going to change. But the length of time that it happens for, it gets shorter, and immediately you know you have the tools to fix it. And sometimes you don't want to fix it. Sometimes you just want to marinate and being really peed off. And then you're like, okay, I better go tap now. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, so, like, even me as somebody who does this spiritual work, I'd love so many people to know that it's not about being perfect and being like a perma smile tattooed on your face and floating 3 foot off the ground. It's just, that's just not the reality of it, you know?
is that just because you don't wear the floaty bit?
Is it what?
Is that just because you don't wear the floaty bit?
Yeah, I'm not too not partial to an floaty dress every now and again. I have to admit, every now and again I'll put on a floaty dress.
Depends which day of the year summer's on in the UK, right?
Yeah, solstice.
Summer. Which day summer lands on?
Yeah, for one day.
One day, yeah. Okay, Deb, let's wrap it up. I would love to finish this with the advice that you would give yourself when you just started a business, when you were taking the first step. You could have that conversation right now with you from then. What would you say?
I would say, in order to know what I don't want, I need to go through it. And as much as we just want to bypass all the crappy part and just get to the good stuff, you kind of need to go through all the stuff that you might think you'd regret to know that it's something you don't want to do. So for me, I've done a lot of social media stuff, and I know now I actually want to build more of my empire off of social media and on it. But I want to be on it as well because it's a good platform to be able to use it like this. But I've had to go through a lot of stuff that I didn't want to do to know that I didn't want to do it. And that's okay.
Okay. That's interesting. That's like take each thing as it comes. It's all part of the journey message. And yeah, there will be, it's not clickbait. There's no secret, there's no magic for this. You will have to go through some shitty parts to get to the awesome parts.
Yeah, just keep turning up. Even when it's really hard, just keep. And the days that are the hardest, play make-believe. That's what I say. If you're an entrepreneur, there's so many tough days that you have to keep reminding yourself, why am I doing this? And then on the really crappy days when you know you're not going to have a good day, play make-believe. I'm going to play make-believe that I'm an entrepreneur today, and I'm going to, like, just have fun with it.
That's brilliant. That's great advice. Act as if, yeah. Great. Okay, why don't you, Deb, I have loved this, and I love your voice, and I love everything you have to say with people. You need to be, like, the world needs to hear what you have to say. I want you, like, everyone who's watching to share this and share horrified, because you have such a gift to share with the world, and I'm so grateful to have met you, what I do. And I think I really just want people to hear what you have to say. You're going to help so many people. So keep at it, and we'll keep following you. And where can people find you? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
If you go to deborahjkelly.com, so DeborahJkelly.com. On Instagram and Facebook, I'm Deborah J, and they can email me. I love questions. I love feedback. Give me questions and feedback, and I'm happy to answer them. I love to be able to serve that way. And before we go, I just want to say, Lee, you are amazing. I absolutely love you. You're great. If anybody is looking to start their own business, I 1,000,000% say go to Lee, because you're wholesome and nourishing as a coach, like, and you're really genuine and honest and just really authentic. So yeah, you're amazing. Yeah, definitely biggest cheerleader. That
is so, because I think if I could write up what I would want people to feel from working with me, it would be wholesome and nourishing. So yeah, that's really cool what you use those words. Thank you. This was fun, and this was awesome. We'll do it again.
Yeah, let's talk shit some more. Cool.
Enjoy the rest of your Thursday, and that's it. We're out. Thanks
See
for
you
joining.
later.
Everyone joined.
Yeah, thank you everyone. See you. Bye.
Bye.